Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. In today's video, I will be guiding you through the steps on how to use Cricut Infusible Ink. I will also be sharing all of the tips you need to know to create a successful project every time. Whether this is your first time ever hearing about this material or you have purchased some in the past but aren't confident enough to try it yet, I really hope you find this tutorial helpful. Now, you might be asking yourself, what is Infusible Ink exactly and what makes it so different from iron-on vinyl? Well, Infusible Ink is a transfer that allows you to create vibrant, professional quality results by infusing the ink permanently into your blanks. Unlike iron-on vinyl, there's no peeling, cracking, or wrinkling. The results are bright and seamlessly smooth without leaving any texture on the surface. The Infusible Ink transfer sheets come in a box package that looks like this. It's available in a variety of solid colors and patterns. They have so many fun ones to choose from. Notice how the sheets are securely wrapped inside a black plastic tube. That's because the sheets are light sensitive and can be damaged by contact with any liquid. So for this reason, they are recommended to store in a dark and dry place. Inside, you will find a small polyester cloth that could be used to do a small test before using your actual blank. It also contains a few sheets of butcher paper. Besides the Cricut Infusible Ink transfer sheets, you will also need a lint roller, a measuring tape or a ruler, a brayer tool, heat-resistant tape, fine point tweezers, a heat source, and last but not least, blanks that are compatible with Infusible Ink. As for the blanks, you have so many options to choose from. A few of the many Cricut blanks available include tote bags, t-shirts, pillowcases, and coasters. Fun fact, you can also use sublimation blanks with Infusible Ink since the application process of these two techniques are very similar. To simplify the scientific process for you, they both involve heating ink, which eventually turns into gas particles that bond within polyester coated blanks or into a high percentage of polyester apparel. Preferably nothing lower than 65% polyester. The higher the percentage, the better results you will obtain. I recommend looking out for these affordable sublimation blanks at Michael's or online at my craft source. I will have everything that I'm using in this video listed in the description box, as well as a discount code that you can use at my craft source. The first thing you need to do is open Cricut Design Space. You can either create your own designs within the software or download any designs you have purchased outside of Cricut Design Space. I will be customizing a few coasters, a tote bag, and a t-shirt. So for the coasters, I'm using these 4 fun patterns, and to size them correctly, I went ahead and measured a coaster with my measuring tape. Once I got the measurements, I created a template by adding a square from the shape section and adjusted the sizing to match the coasters. I also adjusted the size of the images and used the template to make sure it looked accurate. Now for this wavy pattern, I had to make a few quick adjustments. Since I'll be utilizing a few colors of Infusible Ink for this coaster, I clicked on the contour feature located on the bottom right corner. This will allow me to separate each of the wavy shapes and let me individually change the color of each according to the Infusible Ink sheets that I'll be using. After I was done making those adjustments, I highlighted all 3 and clicked on Group. I repeated the same process with the tote bag and t-shirt. After getting the accurate measurements, I adjusted the sizes of the designs. For the Best Believe I'm Still Bejeweled tote bag design, I wanted to use 2 different colors of Infusible Ink. So after duplicating the image, I clicked on one of the images and hit the Hide All Contours button. I selected all of the letter elements, that way I was only left with the quote. For the second image, I did the same thing, except this time I did it backwards. Instead of clicking the Hide All Contours button, I just contoured the lettering out and I was left with a disco ball and sparkles. From here, you can change the color of each layer. I will be using a purple galaxy pattern and black Infusible Ink for the lettering. Lastly, I highlighted both layers and grouped them together. For my t-shirt design, I will also be using a pattern, so I just changed it to orange to remind myself which one I'll be using. Once you're ready, click Make It to continue. Just like you would with iron-on vinyl, before cutting, make sure to mirror all of your mats, as this will ensure that it transfers correctly. As you can see, these Infusible Ink transfer sheets have a printed ink side and a plastic liner side. Always place the sheet down on a standard grip mat with the ink facing up. Carefully flatten down the sheets with the brayer tool to make sure it adheres to the mat. You want to avoid touching the sheets with your hands as much as possible since the oils in your fingers may damage it. But as long as you make sure to wash your hands and dry them completely before touching it, you will be fine. You might have noticed before heating the heat transfer sheet, the colors will look more dual compared to the color on the box. That's because the heat will activate the ink and make your colors more vibrant, just like how they look in the box. I'm going to be using the Infusible Ink transfer sheet material setting with the pressure at default. Click on this checkbox under the pressure to remember the material settings for all of your layers. This will save you quite a bit of time since you won't have to keep looking for the settings every time. For the blade, I'm using the fine point, which is the blade your machine typically comes with. Today I'll be using my Cricut Explore 3 machine, but Infusible Ink is also compatible with all of the cutting machine models, including the Cricut Joy. Load your first mat into your cutting machine and press the flash and go button to start cutting. After your machine is done cutting, flip the mat over and pull it away from the sheet. Trim down your design so you can use the rest of that sheet for any future projects. A tip is to move the sheet around like this to crack the cuts. This will make it easy for you to weed. Also, keep in mind that this material feels like cardstock, so instead of using weeding tools, use your fingers or tweezers to avoid any damage in your ink sheets. Next, turn on your heat press. You can use a Cricut Easy Press or any press that reaches up to 400 degrees Fahrenheit. Make sure your heat press is big enough to cover your entire design because it's best to get it all done in one press. If you're using a Cricut Easy Press, you will need a heat pad to protect your surface. To prep my sublimation coasters, I cleaned the surface with rubbing alcohol and a cloth to get rid of any fingerprints. Once they are completely dry, place your transfer down on the blank with the ink touching the surface. Then use heat-resistant tape to secure it in place. I repeated the same process with the one-layered coasters. Now, if you want to use multiple colors of infusible ink on one design like I'm doing here with this coaster, just know you cannot overlap the sheets. However, you can place the colors next to each other like a puzzle. I trimmed down the plastic liner to make it easier when placing all of the 3 colors down. Again, use some heat-resistant tape to keep them in place. Now it's time to transfer your designs with your heat press. I placed the coasters on a sheet of butcher paper with the transfer facing up and added a second layer on top to protect the heat plate from any ink. For these sublimation coasters for Michaels, I set the temperature to 400 degrees Fahrenheit for 80 seconds. Be sure to follow the recommended time and temperature setting for your particular blank. To avoid shifting while being pressed, do not move your easy press during the transfer as this could cause ghosting, which is fading on your image. Also, try to keep the same level of pressure during the entire time. I was able to press 2 at a time with my 9x9 easy press. Once they are completely cooled, remove the heat resistant tape and the transfer sheet to reveal the final project. Guys, look how good and vibrant the colors turned out. If you take a closer look at your transfer sheets after heat pressing, you will see that all of the ink is gone, which means you successfully pressed it. For the tote bag design with the two colors, I also repeated the same technique to stack them together. Again, I'm not overlapping any layers, I'm just trimming around the plastic and then placing them down. The best way to describe this process is to puzzle all of your pieces together to make it look like your original design. Since we mirrored the images, your words will be backwards, but once you flip it over, it should look right. For the Infusible Ink tote bag and t-shirt, I'm switching over to my 15x15 heat press. To prep the tote, I pre-pressed it for 10 seconds and then I went over it with a lint roller. Next, I took the transfer and aligned it in the middle of the bag and secured it with heat-resistant tape and placed the new sheet of butcher paper on top. Do not reuse your butcher paper between your projects because it could have gotten ink on your previous project, so to be safe, always use a new one every time. My heat settings for this Cricut Infusible Ink tote bag was 385 degrees Fahrenheit at 40 seconds. After it cools down, remove the transfer. This one also turned out so cute. I love the galaxy pattern on the disco ball. You would repeat the same application process for the Infusible Ink t-shirts, except this blank does require to place a piece of cardstock in between your t-shirts to prevent the ink from bleeding through the other side when pressing.
You were my best friend. Didn't care about the rules, good on the weekends. I'll be in fools, drifting to deep space. So brave and so stupid, just like the movies. How it's gonna stay in the...
Once your t-shirt has cooled down, remove the transfer to reveal your new vibrant t-shirt. I love making Infusible Ink shirts because you can stretch and wash them as much as you want and your design will stay intact. And there you have it, those were the simple steps to use Cricut Infusible Ink transfer sheets. Let me know in the comments if you have any questions. Thank you so much for watching, see you guys next time with a new DIY.